The Man Who Hated Raisins. Once upon a time, there was a middle-aged date farmer. He lived in a little cottage on the south side of the village where he daily tended to his crops of dates, the sweet little wrinkled type fruits. This farmer liked life and all the things it had to offer. He loved to be rich, to eat food, to have great wealth, and to love his wife, whom he had loved for many years. For him, though, the wealth, food, power, and love that he had was not quite enough. His lot in life seemed to be stagnant and never would change. Deep in his heart and his mind, he longed for some sort of elevation in his stature. One other thing about the farmer that must be told at this point is that he hated raisins. The mere thought of raisins, such a simple little fruit, grapes left out in the sun just a little too long, was horrible to him. His wife had once made the mistake of serving him raisins mixed with his daily oatmeal breakfast long ago. He threw the lumpy mess down the sink. He was livid with rage. "Never, ever in the rest of our marriage are you to serve me raisins, woman!" He said this as he shook his spoon in front of his wife's shocked face. "My dear husband," said she, "I've never known you to be this way. I had no idea. What is it about raisins that distresses you so?" He would not explain to his dear wife, but I know for a fact that his personal peeve against raisins came from business jealousy. The farmer was living and plying his trade in the same village as Heinrich Smalls, the raisin dealer. The farmer was envious that Smalls had 3 times as much profit from the sales of raisins as he had of his dates. The farmer had no knowledge of the trade of raisin selling, having learned no other skills in his years of schooling. So, you see, it was raisins, in his belief, that prevented him from reaching his highest potentials for wealth, food, power, and love. This is really why he hated raisins. It was a typical Monday morning for the farmer and his wife. She just served him his breakfast of oatmeal with honey and brown sugar, with no raisins, and was cleaning up the kitchen, while he began tending to his date garden. The farmer was digging a furrow into the dry, crusty soil with his trowel and muttering to himself about his lowly state in life, when he suddenly heard a small squeaking sound. It was like the chirp of a field mouse to his ears. He paid close attention and tried to track the sound. It began to increase in volume and clarity. It was a high-pitched voice, and the voice was saying, "Help me! Help me!" The farmer ran to where the sound was coming from, and near the west end of the garden where he finally found the source of the voice. He was horrified to see a tiny little man, no bigger than the bunion on his wife's big toe, trapped in a spider's web wrapped along a date plant. He was wearing a little black suit and little black patent shoes, and was swinging a fine wooden cane in his hands, frustrated at his predicament. The farmer then looked to his right, and several inches away was a ghastly, gray-haired spider, just crawling inches by inches towards the little man in the trap. "Help me! Get me out of here!" the little man continued squealing. The farmer raced off to the pile of stones he'd been saving to make a rock garden with and ran back to the trap. The spider was just half an inch away. He took aim, and the farmer thrust the rock at the spider. His aim was true, and the spider was knocked flat with one bounce of the smooth gray stone on its body. The farmer then took out his cutting shears and released the poor little man from the spider's web. After the little man dusted himself off, he smiled and walked over to the farmer's gargantuan foot. "Lift me up so we can chat," said the little man, and the farmer bent over and held out his hand. The little man jumped on, and the farmer placed his hand up closer so he could see eye to eye with the little man. "Mr. Farmer, you have rescued me from a situation that would have been my death. I am grateful to you for your kindness, and I must show my appreciation by rewarding you. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Alistair Aloysius Abercrombie, Esquire, enigmatic elf." He said this with grand salutation, with a grand bow, and a tip off his top hat. "I possess magical powers, and whatever you may so desire shall be yours." The farmer couldn't really believe that this was all happening on a boring Monday morning, much less any of it happening to him. He thought about all the events that had just transpired. and thought about the possibilities of Mr. Abercrombie's gift while he scratched his whiskery chin. If what you say is true, Mr. Abercrombie, then I shall accept your reward with gratefulness.
And what may that wish be, great farmer?
I desire nothing more than to have a greater life, a life with more food, more power, more love, more wealth than what I am receiving now.
Are you sure of this?
Asked Mr. Abercrombie, leaning on his little cane and looking at the farmer suspiciously. Yes, nothing but. He smiled like a man possessed.
It shall be granted, then.
Abercrombie reached into the inner lining of his jacket and, quick as a wink, produced a handful of pebble-shaped seeds.
These are seeds, but not ordinary ones. They are magical grape seeds. They only work their magic when their directions are followed, and to the letter. Mark these words. Plant these seeds. In 3 days, you shall find a great grapevine growing where the seeds were planted. Pick the grapes off the vine and leave them out on a towel. Let the sun hit them for 3 days' time. They will become shriveled and tart raisins. On the evening of the 3rd day, eat your fill of the raisins. The next day, your wish will be granted.
Raisins, said the poor middle-aged farmer. But I hate raisins. It ills me to even look at them. I don't see.
Then you refuse my gift? I would be so disappointed.
All right, then, I will take the seeds. I cannot let such an opportunity pass by me, not in this stage of my life. He took the seeds from the little man. They were like heavy rocks for Abercrombie, but light as feathers for the farmer.
Remember, follow my instructions to the letter. If you deviate from them, the magic will backfire. There may be grave consequences.
The farmer shrugged and let the little man down to the ground, and they went their separate ways. The farmer to his little shack, and Abercrombie to parts unknown. The farmer planted the seeds and waited. 1 day, 2 days, 3. And as Abercrombie had promised, a great grapevine did appear. The farmer and his wife were dumbfounded.
Pick the grapes as he said, dear husband, so your wish may be granted.
I do it with a slight tinge of apprehension, dear wife, for I would have to eat raisins in order to receive my wish. How I wish I could receive my wish sooner.
Ah, yes, but what we want we sometimes have to pay for. Is that not so, dear husband?
So it is. They both gathered the grapes off the vine and laid them out in the sun on a blanket. 1 day passed. The farmer started to become slightly edgy, knowing that he had 48 hours to go before he could attain his happiness. He wanted it very badly, even if he must eat a bunch of god-awful raisins. He looked out into his field that evening, under the moon and the stars. He thought deeply to himself, what is the point of waiting 3 whole days? If these grapes or raisins or whatever are so magical, why would one wait? What is the point? He shook his head and went to bed. On the 2nd day, he inspected the grapes. They had indeed begun to become quite wrinkled and brown. They looked kind of repulsive, like the droppings of a rabbit. Yet the farmer felt a keen but mysterious craving for them. He dreamt, while he knelt towards the towel, about the juicy flavor of the little raisins rolling on his tongue, chomping on them with his teeth, letting the juice mix with his saliva into a sweet nectar that he could swallow. Yes, raisins might be good. 1 more day, he said softly. That evening the farmer's wife cooked the farmer's favorite meal, pork chops, braised carrots, buttered bread, and apple pie for dessert. He could not eat. The farmer had no appetite.
Is your stomach troubling you, dear husband?
No, dear wife, I just have no taste for it today. What he really wanted were those raisins, sitting on the towel in the garden. Even though the sunrise of the 3rd day was not to occur for another 12 hours, the farmer could not wait. He pushed his plate away. He got up and said, I'll check out the garden, see if there's any gophers digging around in there. He walked out the door while his worried wife watched. He walked, then began to gallop. Oh, how he ran to the garden. The raisins, that's all he thought of. Raisins, got to have raisins, so good, so delicious. Yum, yum for the tum-tum. He dropped his knees before the towel of wrinkled grapes and shouted just as his wife began to realize what was happening. Abercrombie, I don't care what you say. I'm eating the raisins now, and forget the consequences. Let the magic work. He grabbed fistfuls of raisins and munched them faster than he could swallow, munching and chewing, not letting himself stop for breath. He could not stop himself. More and more raisins. The magic had to work. He finally stopped and screamed to the sky, "Raisins! Give to me your secrets. Give me wealth, love, food, power." The wind began to blow as his wife screamed, "It is too soon! The raisins are not ready! What have you done?" Suddenly, the farmer's body began to change. His legs and arms began to swiggle, to extend and thin out like taffy. His skin became green. His torso began to wildly contort itself into inhuman shapes, back and forth, wiggle-wobbling like a child's rag doll. Leaves began sprouting from every inch on the farmer's skin, hair, fingers. His body thinned, his clothes fell off, and his body was entirely green. His feet and legs met each other, fused, became wooden, and his toes crawled into the earth below him, implanting him into the spot where he stood. His wife came running up to where she thought she saw her husband only a moment ago, but only came upon a tall, green grapevine and a pile of the farmer's dirty overalls and his glasses. The farmer's wife sat on the ground and wept, and her tears mingled with the wind, and the wind whistled loudly in her ears. The wind sounded like, "Too soon, too soon, too soon." The farmer was never seen again, of course, but I'll tell you that he got his wish, however indirectly. The grapevine that was once the farmer is now one of many grapevines that produce some of the world's finest wines. These wines have provided wealth, power, and for many persons, the wine has been a catalyst for romantic evenings. Maybe we could all learn how to appreciate our station in life the way the farmer does now. For he is happy now, despite the fact he cannot talk or move. And he likes raisins now as well.